Hello, everyone. We are here to share with you our research titled Middle School Bilingual Teachers Translanguaging, Biliteracy, and Advocacy Practices. I am Dr. Claudia Rodriguez-Mojica at UC Davis.
And I'm Allison Briceño at San Jose State.
And you can see that we have others on our team as well. We have Alina and Erika, who are currently teachers in the California Bay Area. And we have Dr. Stoehr and Dr. Rutherford-Quach that also took part in this study. And we'll go ahead and get started. So to get started, we want to set the research context for you. We know that teaching is a political act, and with the current political climate being as it is, there are just additional challenges for bilingual Latinx students and their teachers. Essentially, teaching is a political act. And teachers engaging in advocacy work are able to create environments that encourage the questioning or interrogation of inequitable practices and also resist any views that are deficit views of children and their communities. It is incredibly crucial that we work to develop our teachers' critical consciousness, their awareness of biliteracy, and of translanguaging so that we may support their efforts to advocate for their students and communities. Bilingual teachers also may need to unlearn and heal some of the damage that has been done by oppressive linguistic practices and racism as they went through their own schooling, possibly as Latinx individuals and individuals identified as English learners in school. So given this research context, we wondered, how can we help bilingual teachers specifically gain an understanding of biliteracy and translanguaging, and heal as bilingual individuals so that they are better equipped to be able to advocate for their Latinx bilingual students? So in this wondering, we ended up developing what we call Proyecto Bili. And Bili stands for Bilingual Biliterate Instruction for Bilingual Youth. And for this project, we submitted a National Professional Development Grant to the U.S. Department of Education, and we developed 36 hours of online asynchronous professional development in Spanish for teachers in grades TK through 8th grade. So these were bilingual teachers. And we were awarded this grant, so this grant was what funded this work. As part of this work, we integrate throughout evidence-based instructional approaches from a study by Vaughn and colleagues in 2009 that meets the What Works Clearinghouse standards for moderate evidence. And we integrate this throughout the PD content. It is not just in one place. And we highlight for teachers how to use strategically use video clips to build concept knowledge and also to promote discussion amongst their students. We also support our teachers in being able to develop and utilize graphic organizers and writing to help build content comprehension and help students engage with the language of the content. And we highlight explicit vocabulary instruction with increased opportunities for students to encounter new vocabulary via text and also video opportunities. Finally, through this evidence-based instructional approaches, we also include structured pairing opportunities so that students can practice their language focused on content. And here, I know it might be a little small on your screen, but we included a screenshot of the actual PD. So I mentioned that this is online asynchronous PD in Spanish. Because it is online and asynchronous, we use the Canvas Free for Teachers site to be able to house all of our content. And this is a screenshot of what the teachers saw on their end as they went through this. They did this all at their own pace, but we did include for them a pacing guide that guided them in completing one module, such as this one here, Módulo 201B, El bilingüismo y los estudiantes bilingües, creencias y autorreflexión. So they would complete one module roughly every 2 weeks. But they could, it was okay if they fell a little behind or if they went a little bit ahead because it was just a pacing guide recommendation. So this is what we developed, the Proyecto Bili PD in Español. As we developed this content for the PD, we really rooted ourselves in some guiding principles. We made sure to integrate those evidence-based practices that I just shared with you from the Vaughn and colleagues study, but we also rooted ourselves in funds of knowledge, humanizing pedagogy, translanguaging, community cultural wealth, and some elements of critical race theory as we develop the content. You can see on your screen that we also have critical biliteracy, and it's in a different color. And that's because critical biliteracy was not one of our initial guiding principles when we developed this content, but it was something that came up for us as we saw how teachers were engaging in our PD and as they developed their critical consciousness and started moving everything that they were learning into practice and engaging in more advocacy efforts within their classroom and in their school community. The strands that you see above on the kind of leaf end of the tree here are strategies to support content literacy, biliteracy, and cultural and linguistic responsiveness. These are the different strands that we had in our PD. Biliteracy was a specific focus, and we did really draw in critical biliteracy in this area. And we also focused on just strategies to support our students identified as English learners and bilingual youth to develop their content literacy. The cultural linguistic responsiveness was really woven throughout all of our modules that our teachers engaged in. Another element of this project, of Project Billy, is the piece where we focused on developing caregiver partnerships with the schools and with the teachers. We did not focus on that aspect of Project Billy in this study. So given what we just shared with you all and the research question, as I said, we developed this content and we made it freely available online asynchronously for teachers in Spanish, and we developed a research question. So our research question is, does Proyecto Billy, the PD that we just shared with you, support middle school bilingual teachers' translanguaging stance and advocacy efforts? And if we find that it does, we wanted to know how it did that.
Thank you. So to begin to answer that question, we looked at 8 middle school bilingual teachers, and you can see their pseudonyms are there, as well as the grades that they teach. You can see too that they have a wide range of experience. One person was brand new and someone else had 22 and 23 years of experience. 7 of the 8 were two-way dual language teachers, and 1 was a heritage language teacher. And all 8 were either from New Mexico or California. So looking at the data collection and analysis, there was a big team of us, and positionality was at the forefront of data collection and data analysis and data interpretation. And having a wide range of views and perspectives was really helpful in that. Most of us had previously been bilingual teachers, 2 are currently teachers, and we made sure to filter the data multiple ways and multiple times, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. The data was actually 40 to 60-minute interviews conducted bilingually via Zoom using a semi-structured interview protocol. And we transcribed those interviews and then uploaded them to Deduce software and analyzed them there using a constant comparative method and iterative coding. And a little bit more about the phases of analysis and the coding. In the first phase, we looked really broadly. We read through the transcripts multiple times, and we looked at how participants employed translanguaging strategies, what they learned from Billy, and then any middle school specific topics. And so this was a mix of both inductive and deductive coding. The second round of coding really looked at their advocacy strategies. What did they do and with or for whom? And that was more inductive coding. In the third round, we really look at how they reconceptualized biliteracy, and that was primarily deductive coding. And there was a lot of really interesting things that came out of the mix of reconceptualization of biliteracy and advocacy. And then finally, we looked at, again, more specific advocacy-related codes that were this time deductive as opposed to inductive in phase 2. And then for each round of coding, Claudia and I served as the first coder on half the interviews and the second coder on the other half, and we switched. We identified discrepancies, and we got to 100% consensus. So to begin the findings, the first one is reconceptualizing biliteracy. Translanguaging provided a counter space that challenged deficit-framed ideologies and cultivated critical consciousness, as research by Hammond Ortiz and colleagues shows. And here's just an example of what one participant, Yesenia, said. And Yesenia was a 50-50, she's in a 50-50 model, and she's a Spanish speaker, but she's the English teacher in this particular, for this particular transcript here. She said, my tests, I allow them to be bilingual. I'm like, if you know the content, just answer it, because that lets me know you're learning the content. So my assessments, that changed. Another thing is for English 2, it's kind of like what I still do with Juan, where I allow him to gather resources. Like we're doing a research essay. I allow him to gather resources in Spanish for him to learn. And then afterwards, he has to take what he's learning and then just apply it in English to the best of his ability. I mean, that's the whole thing. I'm not going to be putting these barriers into his learning to be able to produce good work, you know? And I think that, yeah, that can be a little controversial because I'm in a 50-50 model and technically I should only be speaking English in my class, but it's like, that's just not how language works. And so then the interviewer said, well, do you get pushback from that? Because she's acknowledging that she's not necessarily following the model. And she said, not after the reclassifications, no, because she had the highest reclassification rate in the school. And so that enabled her to kind of do what she wanted, if you will, in her classroom. So findings 2 and 3 are similar. So all of the Billy participants advocated on behalf of multilingual students, and they did this with a wide range of people. They did it with their peers, their administrators, they did it with their students' families, and their own families, and they did it in the classroom and they did it outside the classroom. So the more they knew, the more they were able to advocate, and they were active advocates. So they were sharing information and intentionally supporting others to be agentive, and they were convincing stakeholders of the need for change. And participants' advocacy efforts evidenced political clarity, with teachers often legitimizing what has been historically minoritized. And here's an example. This is a different participant, Jessica. She said one of the sections we were talking about was critical consciousness. And one of the things I took from it was, anytime that I look at a curriculum, I'm now questioning, who was this curriculum written for? Who is it intended for? And how can I adapt it so that it serves my community, my students? And so the way that I applied it last school year, I prepared the summer plans for our migrant education programs. A lot of our teachers were not excited about it because the books were just irrelevant to our students. Yes, they were bilingual books. They were in English and Spanish, but they didn't relate to the students at all. And the students were not engaging with it. Teachers had to pull from their own resources to provide the summer curriculum. And so this year, another thing I learned is how to challenge administrators for our multilingual learners. And so I brought it to an administrator's attention. And so she told me to write a proposal. Tell me what curriculum is going to best support our students. And so I did my research and I found one that's offered through the Cesar Chavez Foundation that specifically targets migrant education students. And the lessons are wonderful. They're inspired by the United Farm Workers. The books are culturally relevant. And so I wrote the proposal. She approved it and it went to the school board. It got approved. And so now we have this curriculum for summer, which I'm excited to launch. And all of that is through learning how to be an advocate for multilingual learners. And so that's one of the things I got from the Billy course.
Thank you, Allison. So what does this mean? What do these findings mean? Well, we believe that these PD opportunities for current bilingual teachers that include translanguaging are really needed to support teachers to be able to develop more asset-based ideologies and cultivate their critical consciousness in themselves and also in their students. It also means that bilingual teachers shared information as a form of advocacy on behalf of multilingual students. So they did not just keep the information that they learned in the Billy PD to themselves. They provided updated information, for example, like critical consciousness and practice, things like translanguaging. with their colleagues and with administrators, and it was critical and also helped further develop their advocacy practices. As Allison shared, advocacy happened inside their classrooms with students and outside of the classroom as well, and sometimes impacted whole programs, as the example was of this summer program where the curriculum was changed due to one of our participants' advocacy efforts. So, in conclusion, the Billy online professional development was practical. It focused on instruction, but it was also grounded in key humanizing theories and critical biliteracy. Bilingual teacher advocacy developed despite it not being the focus, because we did not start off thinking that we wanted to develop bilingual teachers' advocacy efforts. We wanted to give them more information. We also see that legitimizing what has been historically marginalized, bilingual teachers overrode conventions, policies, and outdated practices based on what they were learning. So, and in turn, they developed their critical consciousness and demonstrated both linguistic and political clarity. And also, we want to share that the current political climate that we're in now necessitates that we provide even more supportive professional development opportunities for bilingual teachers specifically, because we know that their specific needs are usually left unmet. And this is one way that we could support them to continue learning and to be advocates for their students and communities during these very challenging times. Thank you so much for joining us in our presentation.
Thank you.